Hello, everyone, and a very good afternoon and warm greetings from our side. This is Farhan Riaz, co-founder of Pakistan Clean Air Initiative, and I also run a technology incubation center at UET Lahore. So, in the context of today's webinar, which is on the Clean Air Initiative we are running and how we can combat the air pollution, the smog it creates, and also how we can make the informed decisions for our citizens for the preventive and preemptive protection from this deadly medical emergency. We're going to discuss a lot about that. But before we do that, I would like to welcome, and we have a wonderful panel and some of the amazing guests who are going to join us in a bit. So we had been working on this for a while, but I'm really, really thankful to the Puan and the U.S. Consulate for the alumni small grant we got, because this really helped us in kicking things to the next level and scale the impact we are trying to create. Because, and yes, the grant really did help, but most important for us is the support we are getting and being on the same page with aligned vision. That's what really matters. And because I think so, it's not an easy feat what we are trying to do, and the U.S. Consulate is trying to do even before us. I think so. It's the only way out is the collaboration. So this is exactly what it's helping us achieve. So without further ado, after this thanking note, I would like to invite the very respectable U.S. Consul General for the U.S. Consulate Lahore, Ms. Catherine Rodriguez, for the welcome address and open this house formally. Ma'am, please, we'll be honored. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing how the Pakistan Clean Air Initiative is working to showcase its awareness and solution efforts. Air quality is a very important topic because we all share one planet and pollution knows no boundaries. I've been living in Pakistan on and off since 2007. These days, I'm living here in Lahore, as many of you know, beautiful city. Yet, just like every other city, major city, eventually it faces air pollution challenges. And unfortunately, Lahore is ranked as one of the most polluted cities on earth. Doesn't deserve that. It's a beautiful city, deserves better. As Consul General of the U.S. Consulate here, I supervise an effort to provide hourly air quality updates, which allows our followers on Twitter to make informed decisions based on those readings. Also, over the past decade, Mission Pakistan has hosted numerous scientific exchanges between the United States and Pakistan to engage with politicians, industry leaders, researchers, and health experts on air quality. We make these contributions to raise awareness because this is a global issue. As I noted in the beginning, pollution knows no boundaries. Additionally, pollution has a deleterious effect on the development of children and overall life expectancy. There are many policy and practical changes that can be made to improve air quality. I have seen positive steps taken by the Punjab government, such as enforcing zigzag technology for brick kilns. This alone will not solve the problem. There needs to be a multi-pronged approach, which starts with raising awareness. I'm looking forward to this discussion today and hearing about the efforts that you all are doing to find positive solutions. I look forward to spending this time with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your brilliant insights and support. That really means a lot for us. So what we have to do right now is, before we go into the presentation, Wasim, I think so we should go for a round of introduction. And this is generally a very difficult part because all of the panelists, usually we have in such our webinars and regional talks, they're so accomplished, so dynamic. So what happens is generally it takes us a while. So now, because of the time constraints, respecting your time, and so that we can cover most of the information, I would request all of you to please be a a little brief and keep it to maximum 2 to 3 minutes. And before we do that, I got a cue from Shanila to do the traditional screenshot selfie thingy. So I would request everyone to please switch on your cameras. Bilal, if you're here, could you please switch on your camera so that we can take a selfie screenshot? Thank you. Right, there we go. Shanila, you can do the same, just in case for the backup. Thank you so much. Are we done? There you go. Okay. So I would like everyone to please introduce briefly so that we can get a perspective of who has joined, and then we can start out with our overall agenda of the program. So as I told, I'll start. I think so, Madam CG, you have done that already. So would you like to give 2 cents or anything else would you like to add, or shall we go on with the other?
I think it's important that we go on because I really look forward to hearing what you guys have been up to. So
I'm really glad. Thank you. All right. So again, my name is Farhan Riaz, and I'm the co-founder of this great initiative we founded. And we are a trio, 2 Farhans and 1 Wasim. So anyway, my name is Farhan Riaz, and I run an incubator, the main thing. But when I got to know about the movement Farhan and Wasim founded, I could not resist but to help in any way I could. So this is what I'm doing. I believe in the cause, just like other of my team members, and I should not be breaking the rule myself. So I'll pass on to Jamal.
You are not breaking any rules. My name is Jamal Ghazanfar and I'm Professional Alumni Coordinator at US Consulate. I am working under the leadership of Ma'am CG, and we are trying our best to help alumni on different platforms. So I usually deal with from Punjab side. We have more than 8,000 alumni in Punjab, and we have 3 chapters. We just announced our PAN alumni results. So we are going to have a new leadership for next 2 years. So Farhan is our one of the proud alumnus, and we are happy to help, and we are looking forward more ideas from you guys, and we can work together on it. Thank you.
Welcome. Bilal, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bilal Mumtaz, and I belong to the e-pharmacy and healthcare technology space. So my primary business is CAIR.pk, which is the country's leading online pharmacy. And since the inception of the pharmacy in 2014, we expanded into different business models. And in 2018, deciding to essentially build upon the legacies of our greater healthcare group, which has been immersed in supplying different types of medical equipment in Pakistan, from orthopedics to cardiac stents to radiology equipment. CAIR decided to run an agency for clean air purifiers, specifically air sterilizers, with a English company, specifically a startup called Eradicate. Now, these purifiers mainly acted as virus killers. And right now we're in a stage where we're actually looking to get more partners, specifically local partners, on board to create purifiers that are affordable and effective for the local market. Having also been involved with the Pakistan Air Quality Initiative, I've attended many seminars and talked to different leading experts on clean air in Pakistan. I've even read the Lahore Clean Air Commission in 2003, which was the first legislation that was passed into power for namely traffic-based pollution and how to maintain it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing a lot of insights from this group, and looking forward to collaborate with other people. And Catherine, I myself am a alumnus of the Lahore American School, which is very closely knit with the U.S. Consul General in Lahore. So looking forward to hearing from you as well.
Thank you so much, Bilal. Shanila, could you please do the honors and tell us about yourself?
Thank you so much. So I'm Shanila Mazhar, working as Communications Officer with PON. We are a community of more than 32,000 members, And mainly my work is to help everyone who is on our panel, to help them and to facilitate them in maximizing their outreach, and specifically maximizing the outreach of their work, so that I can help both countries in strengthening their ties.
Oh, thank you so much, Shanila. How does it feel you're not moderating? Because we're so used to seeing moderating the amazing panel in the
Yeah.
multi-racial site. So it
it's
feels
very
awkward to
it's
me.
very
Like,
difficult. It's very difficult for a host to become a listener and to go on the
yeah,
other
I'm
side.
sorry for that. I hope you'll bear with us. All right, thank you. Farhan Mubin, could you please introduce yourself?
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Farhan, and I'm the founder of Pakistan Clean Air Initiative. I started this initiative back in 2016 when I returned back to Lahore from abroad. And the first thing that I found out that the air quality in our city is actually unprecedented. I have not seen it anywhere like this in any other country. And knowing that I'm going to be spending time in this city, I thought of that we have to tackle this problem. And the first challenge that we thought of was the awareness part, which we are doing this seminar in accordance to that. Apart from that, I run my own small engineering company in which we manufacture stuff locally.
Thank you so much, Farhan. Wasim Arshad, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Wasim.
That's so cliche, but you need to turn off the volume. And you know the drill. Come on, man. Please try again.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so my name is Wasim Ashad. I'm co-founder of Pakistan Clean Air Initiative. So Farhan approached me back in 2018 about his initiative. And it is very surprising that living in Lahore, we never cared about this problem so much because there was very little awareness about this problem. Being living in Lahore, experiencing every day, you don't see this happening to you. And when Farhan came from abroad, and then he felt those effects immediately because he was not living here. And he brought me on to this campaign, and I was immediately hooked to it. And I thought that it is a very special cause that we have to take part in because the future of our children is at stake, and we are the ones who are going to protect them. So somebody has to take responsibility. Somebody has to do something about itself. So being from the engineering background, I have worked for some multinational companies like Unilever and Agro Foods Pakistan Limited. So we both had engineering background. So we started discussing about how can we solve this problem. And so we listed down a few problems. And as Farhan mentioned, that first problem was the awareness part. So we started working on the awareness. We started a social media campaign. And alongside, we started working on air purifiers and low cost solutions that can be implemented with the economics of Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wasim. I think so with that, we should start with the presentation parts. Wasim, if you could please share your screen and with the first slide. So this is exactly what we are trying to do in Pakistan Clean Air Initiative. And I'll just give it a brief about the initiative a bit. Then I'll just hand it over to Farhan Mubin and Wasim to explain it more details. So the thing is, Pakistan Clean Air Initiative, it's the main campaign, a movement we're trying to run because somehow, even in this post-pandemic, we have seen that people are not at all paying attention to even Corona in Pakistan, which is rather sad. And they're not, a lot of people don't even believe that it exists, and they're kind of meddling in the conspiracy theories. Some do believe it exists, and even the educated lot, sometimes they're not actually taking the precautionary measures, which is disturbing. This is just to give the set the context, because unless you experience as what you see is what you get in our nation locally. So what we have to do, for be it Corona, be it smog, we have to create the awareness campaigns. And this is exactly what Wasim mentioned, and that we have to start with the awareness. It's like a funnel. When we start with the awareness, we start getting the results in the form of more concrete policies and products and all that. So information and awareness is what we're trying to do, so that we can create and disseminate the knowledge for the citizens, so that they can make better daily choices, better health choices and decisions. And how we're going about it is with the help of U.S. mission to Pakistan, and we got that grant. We are running a lot of social media campaigns, and we are running those campaigns so as to educate the masses about the effects smog is having. And let's to give you a little perspective, which would be explained in detail further on. Uh, the smog has got more than 100 or 1,000 times more deaths in Pakistan last year as compared to the corona. We're not at all undermining corona, or it's a very deadly disease, and we have to definitely take precautionary measures. But why are we oblivious to the air quality? That's rather disturbing, and that's what we are trying to bring up through the initiative of the awareness campaigns. We have designed some low-cost air purifiers and low-cost air quality sensor, which are to be placed outdoors in the different part of the city, because we believe that the Lahore is too big. Well, I often say, I give the example, like if it's raining in one part of Lahore, the other part of Lahore would be completely dry. This is just to say that we have, up to my knowledge as of now, which would be further corrected and verified by Farhan and Wasim, we have, I believe, 8 air quality sensors in Lahore. And out of that, we definitely can give the air quality index the value for a certain area, but we cannot make it a sweeping generalization for the whole Lahore. So we have to make the informed decisions. And also for the preventive thing, we have the low cost air purifiers going. We'll discuss that in detail. And this webinar, what we are doing is we want to scale our cause. So a part of it, we are recording that, and after editing it, we would be running social media campaigns on that. So for to run it to the masses, we'll also do an Urdu version of that in the local language, so for the masses. So this whole thing, we are trying to educate the masses, and other than that, we're going to tell them about how the photochemical smog or industrial smog will work. How is it the invisible killer? Why is it the medical emergency? And the worst part is the PM 2.5. Why is it the worst part? As it goes directly into the bloodstream, the 2.5 micrometer of the particles, it's easily breathable. You cannot properly see it because it's like 1/10 of the hair follicle or the hair strand. So that goes directly into the bloodstream and causes a lot of illnesses and problems like bronchitis, lungs diseases, and whatnot. So, anyways, the other part is the last one. I will just briefly discuss that we are trying to, as the saying goes, what you can measure, you can manage it. So first off, we're mainly focused on, after the awareness part, we focused on getting the data points. When we get the proper data points on from most part of the cities, that can help us democratize the data, and again, so that informed decision making can be done for the school, for the government, for the parents of the children who are going to school, or anyone, masses in general. But what exactly is it, and how are we going to go about it? For that, I would like to invite Farhan Mubin. So please join us and explain the presentation in further detail. Farhan Mubin, over to you.
Again, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to declare this smog problem an undeclared medical emergency, which it is, which we have not, in the media, we are trying to now cover it as a medical emergency, but thus far this is the agenda of our whole meeting. The air pollution crisis is declared as a medical emergency in the form of highlights from WHO as well as UN, and as well as the US General Assembly, US Assembly, which is publishing the data of smog values in Lahore. They are all considered in a very unhealthy environment as well as hazardous some of the times. Lahore has been declared as the second worst air polluted city in the world by a Swiss company, IQ Air, and this was declared in the past month. The deaths related to this problem are on an upside of 300,000 per year in Pakistan. Most of the deaths which occur in Pakistan are of children below the age of 5, who are the most affected. I would like to give two examples of what AQI actually does to the general masses. Back in 2019 December in Kabul, there was a spike of smog. The average AQI was around 300 AQI. And the data published from that is that that smog caused 17 deaths and 8,000 hospitalization just in a matter of 1 week. Similarly, in Australia, a value of 200 AQI suspended one of their major tennis tournaments because the air quality was unhealthy. In 2019, Pakistan was considered as 10th worst city, which has now in 2020, it has jumped a lot of spaces and has become at number 2. Delhi and Lahore are always in a tussle to take the number 1 spot. China used to be, Beijing especially used to be one of the highest rated worst air polluted cities, but they have managed it and they have now decreased themselves below even 122nd position. I would like Wasim Ashar to actually explain what AQI is and what it affects our body.
Assalamu alaikum. I will take you through what AQI is and how it affects our body. So talking about AQI, AQI is an index for reporting daily air quality. It tells us how good or how bad the air is around us. It is normally divided into 5 to 6 categories ranging from good to very hazardous. So there are some major pollutants which make up the smog, namely nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, carbon emissions, ground level ozone, VOCs, and PM 2.5. The main problem is identifying the sources of pollutants in Lahore. So the number one problem is the burning of fossil fuels and the burning of crops, which is a very, very major issue here in Lahore and in India as well, which increases the smog to exponential levels in the winters. Household emissions are also a contributing factor, and the most major contributor to our smog is the automotive emissions. The nitrogen oxide emissions, the carbon monoxide emissions, and the PM 2.5 emissions from automobiles extravagate our problem to huge levels. Similarly, the emissions from industries and natural sources add to this problem. So talking about smog, there are basically 2 types of smog. One is the industrial smog, which is caused by emissions from the industries by burning fossil fuels and crop burning, and the other is the photochemical smog. Photochemical smog is a very special effect which takes place when the vehicle emissions react with the oxygen present in the environment in the presence of sunlight. So this we are a victim of both these smogs in Lahore. That is why our smog problem is so big. Another important aspect which I would like to mention is the temperature inversion, which happens in the winter season. As soon as the winter season triggers in Lahore, temperature inversion happens, thereby entrapment of pollutants under a blanket of warm air happens. So all the pollutants are gathered near the ground level, and they, rather than being emitted into the atmosphere, all these pollutants are maintained near the ground level, creating a gas chamber and hence increasing the AQI values. Now coming to the PM 2.5, which is widely considered as the invisible killer. And PM 2.5 are also considered as a pollutant with the most health impact of all commonly measured air pollutants. If you see at the figure on the right, there are 2 pictures of lungs. One is a pair of healthy lungs and the other has been exposed to diesel smoke. This is what PM 2.5 particles emitting from vehicles does to our lungs. They look very similar to the lungs of a person who has been smoking for a very long time, but actually these are the lungs of a person who inhales smoke every day like we do. So why PM 2.5 particles are so hazardous? Farhan has touched this a bit. PM 2.5 particles are 25 times smaller than the width of a human hair. So what that means is that these particles are not blocked by any natural mechanism in our body, and they directly go into our lungs, and from the lungs they directly go into our bloodstream. That is why they have so many drastic effects on our systems. There are some mechanism in our body which can hold the larger particles from entering into our bloodstream. For example, PM10 particles, they are stopped in our nasal cavity and in our throat cavity, and they do not enter our lungs directly. But PM 2.5 particles directly transgress into our lungs and into our bloodstream. So talking about who is affected by smog, if we distribute into categories, so in the lower two categories, which is moderate level and unhealthy level, in these categories, only the people with special cases or with pre-existing conditions are affected. But as in Lahore, we are over the year, we are in a very unhealthy category. In this area, all of the population of Lahore is affected. And in some, for the continuing months right now in the winters, we are mainly in the hazardous category, where everybody, especially children, is affected uh, uh, in this smog season. So now coming to the effects of the PM 2.5 particles after entering into our body and into our lungs and into our bloodstreams, PM 2.5 particles can cause
I think
Can you
Wasim
hear me,
has
please?
lost his voice.
Okay, so
Inflammation.
वो मुझे unmute करना है.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so talking about the daily effects of PM 2.5 particles on our health, after they have entered our body, they cause inflammation of the lung issue. They create aggravation, severe aggravation of pre-existing conditions like asthma and heart problems. There is a 40% more chance of a stroke, and PM 2.5 particles create severe lung diseases to everybody considering these AQI values. General sickness is increased throughout the general population, throughout the whole population. And most importantly, there is a 25% chance of increased heart attack in people due to PM 2.5. So if we see how smog has grown over the year in Lahore, in 2007, we were averaging around 100 AQI. And over the years, it has increased around almost 20% every year. And in 2019, the average yearly AQI of Lahore was over 200, which is unhealthy category. And if we translate these figures into the number of cigarette smokes every day, just by breathing Lahore polluted air, in 2007, each and every one of us without wearing a mask was smoking 3 cigarettes just by going by our daily routines. And in 2019, this amount has increased to 8.5 cigarettes every day without proper protection. And this is a drastic increase of 200% in 12 years only. And what that has done is that our AQI category has changed from moderate to very unhealthy. Thereby, not only people with pre-existing conditions are affected, all of the population is affected with very unhealthy category. So this is a graph of on monthly basis, which we have gathered data for Lahore from 2017 and 2019. You can see that in the summers, we used to have low peak values of around 60 to 70 AQI. In 2019, what was surprising that even in the summer season and even in the summer months, when the smog values need to come down, we were averaging around 180 and we were getting values of 90. And then winter came and we temperature inversion extrapolated our values very high. If we translate all of this effect onto our GDP, this smog problem causes us 6.5%, 6% loss in our GDP, which translates into $47.8 billion stated by the World Bank right now. And if we extrapolate these figures further, we are experiencing a 10% increase in average AQI yearly every year. So that means that every 5 years, our average AQI is increasing by 50%. If no measures are taken right now, if no policies are made, and if no precautions are taken, by 2035, by a 5-year increase of 50% every 5 years, Lahore will be on an average AQI yearly value of 650. That simply means that Lahore will be an inhabitable city. We will not be able to live in Lahore anymore with these values. So another question I would like to ask the members is how many cigarettes does a child smoke every day in Lahore? The answer should be 0. But as of today, as of now, as of the current AQI values, each and every child in Pakistan without wearing a mask smokes 8.5 cigarettes every day, and which is very drastic effect. So listening to all this, it seems like that we are in a doomsday scenario, but it is not, because there is still hope, and we have solutions for this, which we can implement to reduce this problem. And this is a duty bestowed upon us by God to protect the innocent in our society. And the most innocent in our society are our children, and we have to protect them. And that is why we have started Pakistan Clean Air Initiative. Now, I would like to hand back to Farhan to explain us how can we protect our children in the future by dealing with the medical emergency and by doing proper long-term planning.
Yes, hi again. So what we have devised is basically a 5-step plan in which the first step is to create self-awareness. That is to actually find out what the air quality value of the city that you live in is. The first step is finding out the AQI value. That's the only way that you can find out whether precautions need to be taken or not. The second step would be to, once we find out that the values are unacceptable, the doors and the windows should be sealed from outside air entering into the vicinity. The third step would be the most affected are our children. We should make them wear proper PM 2.5 masks, which are N95 masks, if they are going out for long periods of time. That is when the values of AQI are unacceptable. The fourth step in combating the medical emergency would be to run an air purifier where we spend most of our time. So if we spend most of our time inside an office building, there should be an air purifier there. If we spend most of it in our house, there should be an air purifier there. As well as for children, they spend most of their time either at home or in schools. And in schools, there should be mandatory of running an air purifier when the values of PM 2.5 are unacceptable. And the last fifth step would be to limit outdoor activities as soon as the values of AQI hit something around 350. We recommend that schools should not be allowed to operate on values higher than 350 AQI. We have converted this problem into two different categories. One is the medical emergency prevailing right now that needs to be fixed. And the other one is the long-term planning in which policies can be made. The roadmap that we have generated for the medical emergency, the first step in that is the awareness campaign part. We have started a social media campaign with the hashtag Because We Care. We are available on Twitter, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Apart from that, we have dedicated a website to dictate the values of AQI for all the major cities in Pakistan. Along with that, we have launched a beta version of our application, which also helps in determining what the AQI value of the surrounding area is. The second step would be to have a stringent monitoring system for all the cities, all the major cities of Pakistan, including Lahore. By that, what I mean is that right now we only have 27 sensors all over Lahore telling us the values of AQI. If we take the average of those 27 sensors, we don't get a true picture of Lahore. What we would like to do is we would like to convert Lahore into grid format and have a sensor in each grid to actually find out what the value of AQI is. For that, being an engineer, we have devised a cheaper version of an outdoor sensor, which can be placed on poles, on light poles, as well as traffic poles, outside schools, and even outside houses to find out what the value of AQI around that surrounding area is. The third step would be to control the air pollution. By that, I would mean that we should implement some kind of a carpool system for schools and offices. And apart from that, the government, which they have taken a couple of steps, which I believe are not adequate, but crop burning in winter seasons and other pollutants from factories should be controlled on a very stringent basis. The fourth step, being a third world country, is to convert luxury items, which is an air purifier, into an affordable solution that can be bought by a common person very easily, including an indoor sensor that you can actually place on top of tables, that you can find out what the AQI value of that area is, whether an air purifier needs to be run or not. Apart from that, we have designed and we have already made a mock-up of an air purifier specifically for schools, in which we want to have all the schools of Pakistan being able to have clean air, just like they have clean water for their students. The last step is the social responsibility that every person in Pakistan needs to acknowledge, that they are the ones responsible for protecting their own children. And to protect their children, these steps need to be taken in account. We are already teaching our children what global warming is and what recycling is in schools. I think this topic of air pollution should be entered into our curriculums, and we should teach our children, who are the ones who are going to fight this problem the most. Finally, what I would like to say is that all of the Pakistanis need to wake up to this problem, and they need to tackle this problem head on and implement solutions so we can combat this problem. And thank you for your time. You can follow us on Facebook as well as Twitter, as well as you can go to our website and you can find out values about AQI.
Thank you very much, Farhan. Wasim, if you could please stop sharing your screen so that we can switch into the speaker mode. Thank you. It was a very informative presentation, so I hope you guys found it useful. There were some basic stuff we had to cover because we have to just later on advertise it on social media and run it for masses as well. But we're going to have some good Q&A session, and that would be more technical stuff that you and questions you have in your mind, we'd love to answer them. So now we'll move to our panelist speaker, Mr. Bilal Mumtaz. He's introduced himself already. So Bilal, could you please join us and let us know what about your initiatives you were working on in the context of the air quality? Where do you, Bilal? Thanks.
So thank you once again for introducing me and for giving me the floor for this panel discussion. So as I briefly mentioned, the main, essentially, you could say, impetus behind starting Sehat Clean Air, which was the initiative of the e-pharmacy project to bring purifiers, was not essentially to bring virus killers per se, but rather to bring purifiers that could be used by the population in Pakistan to combat the smog. Even if you look at the most basic purifiers, right, there's essentially 3 levels. The first and most primary level can essentially target smog because they're meant for just getting rid of dust. Then another level of that essentially targets pollen. And then the third level can go into bacteria, and then subsequently you could say a 4th level goes into viruses. So those essentially purifiers that we bought in, the most basic ones that were used for the houses, didn't even have HEPA filters. So they had simple carbon filters, but they used UV light technology to filter out viruses from the air. The bigger units, essentially, because they're so expensive, they can only be sold to hospitals and other institutions. And, you know, keeping that in mind, right, we found out back then in 2018 was these purifiers could target a wide range of illnesses and bacterial and viral strains knowing ranging from the pneumococcal virus to the influenza virus to even the coronavirus. So essentially, we're looking for more purifiers in the market that can cater to both, getting rid of the smog and to getting rid of the viruses and bacteria. So essentially, with my time as part of the Pakistan Air Quality Initiative, a simple HEPA filter purifier can be developed locally, in-house, and really we shouldn't cost so much money. It can be sold to the wider public. And I would even encourage those panelists or those participants of the Pakistan Clean Air Initiative to actually get in touch with the makerspace community to try to get this to be an IoT product. Whereas not only are people buying these purifiers, but they're providing you with data that can be very, very essential. Apart from that, precautionary measures are also very, very important to keep yourself safe. And what we don't realize is that there are certain, I'm referencing a TED talk held by somebody based out of Delhi. And there's essentially 3 types of plants you can keep in the house to alter the air quality and to basically improve the AQI. AQI, as you mentioned, is a measure of nanograms per cubic meter of PM 2.5 formaldehydes, which are chemically known as HCHOs, and other VOCs, volatile organic compounds. So the 3 plants that one can use are areca palms, money plants, and mother tongues. Areca palms simply get rid of the formaldehydes in a certain area or space. Money plants improve the level of oxygen throughout the day, and mother-in-law tongues, which essentially you keep in your bedroom, improve the level of oxygen at night. And keeping all that in mind, even from the e-pharmacy space, I can tell you that there's a lot of different other maybe products that you could start promoting to the public at hand. Why do we use N95 masks instead of surgical masks during the smog? Is because those 2.5 particulate matter per se can actually seep into a surgical mask, that even if it's 60 or 70 or 80 TSM wouldn't be effective. You need essentially an N95 mask, which literally stands for a mask that can filter out 95% of all inefficacies in really, really bad air. And in terms of IoT, other devices that you can implement as part of your initiative can include oximeters, because apart from measuring your heart rate, they also tell you what your oxygen saturation is. And a PEF meter, which is a peak external flow meter, can, we've just started selling some on our portal, and what they do is they attach to your phone via Bluetooth and let you know how strong of a breath you can take. So it really measures the flow in your breath. In terms of how smog itself spreads in Lahore specifically and in Punjab, we realize that we're in the crux of the entire the confluence of bad air in Pakistan, and the reason has to do with airwaves that reflect air coming in from the west to the east. We realize that the height of bad AQI in Pakistan comes during a time when the rice crop has just started to be taken out, and what we do is we start burning the remainder of that. So that adds to the agricultural reasons as to why pollution spreads. From a transport point of view, over the past few years, what's actually happened is we were one of the very few countries in the world that was actually procuring Euro 2 standard fuel for our petrol stations. Now, just to keep that in perspective, we were doing that because we were saving money, and there was a refinery we were getting all that Euro 2 from in Qatar, and we were literally the only country in the world they were continuing to supply Euro 2 fuel from, even though they've now, as of 2020, made it a point, and Pakistan's obliged, thankfully, to only supply Euro 5 standard fuel. So the difference between those 2 standards, in ordinal order, so there's a Euro 3 and a Euro 4, is quite massive. Euro 1 is 1,000 ppm of sulfur that's emitted. Euro 2 is 500, Euro 3 is 100, Euro 4 is 50, and Euro 5 is 10. So from the state level, the PSO has started to procure Euro 5 fuel, even though from when we procured it in November till December, apparently it all ran out. And the third and fourth reason combined, from the industry and power perspective, is the fact that the coal that we normally get from CAIR, which actually accounts for the 5th largest supply of coal in the entire world, is very, very low quality. Legislations were actually passed around a year ago to stop specifically brick kilns from operating, since they use a heavy amount of that sulfur, and a lot of pollution during the smog season was contributed from those sites. And keeping all these different factors in mind, yes, carpooling does seem to be a way to improve the smog, and that was what was laid out in the Lahore Clean Air Commission in 2003. I'll try to share those details later on. Where I noticed, and this not only reflects the fact that my school especially has to get an ultimatum from the consulate in Lahore, and which then gets an ultimatum from the embassy in Islamabad to close down the school due to any safety concerns, or due to, say, for example, a pandemic that's happening, was the fact that the government actually finally took an initiative around a year ago to close schools because of the prevailing issue of air quality. What I noticed back in March and April, when we first had our lockdown due to this, to COVID, was because of the fact that a lot of institutions and a lot of retail outlets were closed. Subsequently, a curfew was also placed. And what you notice is that in Lahore, out of all places, where we were expecting maybe at least 150 AQI, we went down to 40. And it's just really, really, tragic that we have to wait for a global pandemic to call a lockdown, to call for shops to close down, to decrease traffic on the roads, and subsequently see air quality improve like that. We never thought of the smog itself as a great enough impetus to put these policies into place. So all in all, right, we should realize that there has to be a decrease on the usage of transportation of vehicles to get rid of the smog. And in terms of even your plan of action, I feel that it is essentially the role of the retail space and the health tech space to let you know what devices and what products can be used in your greater plan, and how much data you can collect to essentially prevent and to raise an issue about how detrimental the smog really is to the individual, and how to improve the air quality year by year by more and more governmental expansion, more and more industry academic linkages, and more usage of technology, all developed at a local level.
Thank you very much, Bilal. Amazing explanation and brilliant insights. That definitely shows the depth of work you had been doing. And an interesting fact, unfortunately, one of our panelists, Mr. Abid Umar, who runs another air quality initiative, he had to drop out at the last moment because of some emergency and commitment. So Bilal Mumtaz had been working with Abid Umar as well. So I think so we've got a good perspective from him. So anyway, I love the suggestion you made, Bilal, about the purifiers and the HEPA filters. In the question and answer session, I would like to take Farhan Mubin on that, and would like to know about his feedback on it. And now we'll move on to our next panelist, and then the last one for this webinar, that is Mr. Dawar Bhatt. Dawar Bhatt, if you could hear me, please, can you turn your camera on and join us?
Thank you, Farhan. Can you see the video?
Yeah, I can.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's a great honor to be joining you all, and a lot of like-minded people on this panel, and that helps sort of give us encouragement that a lot of other people are both concerned and working in this space to create a better environment for us and our future generation. Bilal was just talking about how the air quality during the lockdown period was something that we never imagined to witness, and at the same time it happened, and it's no more at this point. And to just put into perspective, we managed to get a couple of photos for before and after, and if I could share my screen, let me just put it on. So this is an image that I took in the colony that I live in, and as you can see the date, 2nd January 2019. And this is about 2 years ago from now. So this is the situation, and this is again, we right now we have similar air quality in the morning hours, and this is about 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and you cannot see beyond I think 30, 40 meters. This is a drone shot. And during the lockdown period, because we had good clean air quality, we managed to get a similar photo from the same location, which can everyone see this? So this is the same location. The AQI is 37. The PM 2.5 is only 9 micrograms, and this is as good as Washington DC, as good as any other major city in the world. So the point I'm just trying to make is that, as Bilal said, that there were news reports that you can see the mountains of Kashmir from Sialkot, and similarly on the Indian side, you got news reports that the Himalayas are visible from various regions in Himachal Pradesh or Punjab. So we miss out on these things, and this is a very human angle that we, a lot of in our scientific discussions and technical discussions, we keep on missing out, that air pollution is primarily a human rights issue. And when we miss this angle, that what used to be is no more or might not be even for the next generation, this is where our all of us come together and call it a human rights issue. And so because the human rights angle is primarily linked to public health, and this is a field that concerns all of us. I, as a public health consultant, got involved in air pollution, and that is how I connected with PAQI. And Abid himself, when he told me that he won't be able to read, he basically mentioned that whatever work that we're all doing, it gives us sort of an idea that more people are concerned, more people are working on it, and gradually we begin forward. So a little background about PAQI as well. PAQI is still a completely non-profit initiative that started measuring the air quality in various cities, and it again happened purely out of luck that while the smog episodes of 2016 and 17 were happening, Abid had a little device on him, a small PM 2.5 sensor, which, and while he was traveling from Beijing to Lahore to Karachi, he had a stopover at Lahore. He got out of the plane and he felt that there was a very, very strong similarity to the air quality in Beijing and Lahore. So, and when he checked his PM 2.5 monitor, he realized that the whole picture that we've been missing out so far is that the data was off the charts. We already knew that air pollution is an issue in 2014, 15, 16, but we didn't have the data. So PQI primarily targets this missing space that we have to monitor, and we have to put out data for public awareness. And as public awareness builds around it, it may become a big enough issue that political parties and public policy will start targeting this area and start mitigating it. And this is what is happening, as other participants mentioned here, that we are talking about fuel quality now, we're talking about power issues, we're talking about how air pollution is affecting our children. So my part in this was and is largely how to get out of this vicious cycle that Pakistan, as a low middle income economy, continues to invest in fossil fuels, because we remain a very small emitter of carbon dioxide in proportion to other countries in the world. So as a matter of fact, that fossil fuels are linked to both global warming, but also to aerosol emissions. And this is where we are put in a very, very tight spot, that we're going to increase coal usage, we're going to increase fossil fuel usage. But what are we going to do about the aerosol emissions? Do we have the technology? Do we have the policies in place? Do we have the regulations in place that we start targeting and we deal with these issues together? And at this point, there's a huge vacuum that has to be filled. So in terms of awareness, what we have seen in the past few years, and past few years basically means that since data is available, what we're seeing is that the awareness around these issues has increased, and it has increased to a point that at least within Lahore, where the large chunk of air quality monitors are placed by PAQI and private organizations, we see that the subscribers to these monitors are increasing. So in 2019, you have a minimal 23,000 users. And by the end of this year, last year, 2020, the number of users has quadrupled, and we have this is basically an exponential growth over a year. But at the same time, uh, we have 156,000 users. What this shows is that the awareness has increased, but just to put into context, the subscribers in the same app for New Delhi are 1.56 million. So that we have 10 times less subscribers, which is just to give a proxy for the awareness around it. I'm sure more people know about it, but when we say know about it, we are talking about the awareness about how dangerously it is. And when people consider it to be very dangerous, they subscribe to a service to get to know what air quality is like. Uh, at the same time, air quality in comparison to last year has been worse this season, and a lot of people are getting confused. How could it be worse? Uh, if we take the annual average, take the whole average for 2018, 19, 20, it's very, very logical that 2020's PM 2.5 average is going to be lower than the previous 2 years, because for at least half of the year, our entire economy was suboptimally operating. But when we talk about the smog season specifically, when we have the economic recovery in progress, that has led to a lot of industries polluting a little bit more. That has also led to a sort of lapse in regulatory checks and balances, because the government itself wants the economic recovery to happen. And at the same time, the data that we're now getting for fuel sales and car sales also says that there is an increase in proportionally in comparison to 2018 and 19. And this basically also because our aerosol sources are fuel and vehicles and industry. These are the primary sources that we're dealing with. And all of them have increased in the smog season. So at the end of the year, when we're going to take averages of these past few months, October, November, December, and compare them to 2019 and 18, we're going to see a marginal increase. Another thing that is happening, and this brings us back to the very human angle that we miss out, is that the coronavirus pandemic, it for the upper middle classes, for the upper classes, we notice that air quality has cleaned drastically. We're happy with the clean air we're breathing. Our kids can play in the parks, but at the same time, it has put the lower middle classes and the lower classes into a very, very tight space in terms of their financial resources. And whenever this happens, we've seen this happen before. We are seeing this happen in other countries, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and India and Bangladesh, is that when the poverty level increases, when real income decreases, especially for the lower classes, they tend to start using solid fuel more, which basically means burning wood, which means burning any sort of plastics they have for heating. They're not going to use your regular fossil fuels for food. Their kitchen is going to be running on wood as well. And the farmers are going to be less interested in renting a cedar machine, and they're going to burn more of their agricultural waste as well. So as a matter of fact, the pandemic might have cleaned up the air for a few months, but it has put us in a tight economic spot that actually has led to increases in air pollution while the economy is recovering. So in a larger scheme of things, the pandemic at the end of the day has been harmful for both in terms of our air quality as well as economy. And this is where we want a lot of participants to, especially the participants from medical fields, is that we have to come up with a way that we start looking at the huge blanks in research, especially in Punjab and our as a country as a whole as well, but especially get out of this the little urban setting that we've built the air pollution angle around. And it's probably a time that we can, in this year, that we can start looking at it rather than from Lahore smog. We can probably discuss it as a Pakistan air quality issue or Pakistan smog issue, because as things stand, Karachi has bad air quality, Rawalpindi has bad air quality, Peshawar has bad air quality. These are big cities, people are everywhere, and just that we have data for Lahore at this point, it means that we probably need data for other cities. And rather than just saying Lahore smog, when we have the data, when we have the monitoring, and when we have enough information for citizens, we're going to deal with it at a national scale. And that is basically what needs to happen.
Thank you so much, Davar. It was wonderfully explained. And what I'm loving about this, having different panelists from different initiatives, is like it's putting things in perspective in their own way. I mean, like every Davar, Bilal, Abid Umar, you guys talked about him, and we at Pakistan Cleaner Initiative, although we have the same vision, we are working on the same thing, but we have a certain angle to it. I love the analysis you made, Davar, like ranging from the fossil fuels to the poverty line and the kind of pandemic, post-pandemic effect, which we were naive enough maybe to think about, like it's gonna maybe help us clean the air, which we saw like as soon as we got back to life. So the air quality was over there, but maybe it's worsening. But anyway, what I love about it is I think so the is putting things into perspective, maybe which I would say about our movement, maybe we were maybe putting not blind spots to, but maybe we were overemphasizing on another thing. So I think so with the help of this webinar and such movements, I would very humbly extend an invitation to collaborate, because I believe it's totally not for profit in our case and in your case as well, and for Bilal as well. Bilal also has a great distribution network by the virtue of his e-commerce and retail pharmacies. So I think so that can kind of help us create the impact and maybe compound the effort and the impact we want to create. Anyway, thank you so much, Dawat. And now it's 4 now, so we'll just take the last 10 minutes in the question and answers, if in case the participants or panelists have any. I would start with one, as I mentioned, Bilal brilliantly talked about the HEPA filters, their manufacturing and all. And Farhan Mubin, being the design engineer and the founder of Pakistan Cleaner Initiative. Farhan, would you like to add some of your opinion about the manufacturing of the filters? How can we commoditize it from the luxury item to the more affordable one? And you can briefly share some other insights you've heard from Bilal and Dawud as well. Over to you, Farhan, please, before we take on more questions.
Yes, so yes, Mr. Bilal actually stated a lot of interesting facts, one of which was the air purifier and how cheaply we can actually build it locally. The only constraints that we have here in Pakistan, which I found, is the HEPA filter and the quality of the HEPA filter which is available. What I have been able to achieve thus far is that we have developed a supply chain from China who are providing H13 HEPA filters at a very, very low cost, at a cost that can be affordable to the masses. So we are also finding solutions in having this filter problem. Locally, there is no manufacturer who is actually producing HEPA filters that is required to combat smog. So yes, that is one of the constraints in developing a cheap air purifier, because most of the cost of a cheap air purifier is the filter itself. And what I would like to add is that we have actually achieved that in procuring very cheap HEPA filters that can achieve this task.
I'm really happy to hear that. And yes, there are quite a few HEPA filter manufacturers in Pakistan. Guard Group is a very notable example. But at the same time, right, I've had a look at their work, I've had a look at their lattice designs, and I even showed them a huge medical unit of mine that was using HILPA and HEPA filters. And when they tried to send me, a replication of a filter that they could send me, it turned out to be too costly, right? another thing that gets ignored when you buy any sort of air purifier, whether it's a HEPA filter, whether it's a carbon filter, these filters actually have to be replaced every 6 months. That education process, even at the most basic level, if you go to any departmental store, even like a salesman who might know a lot about electronics supposedly, will just withhold himself from telling that information because I don't think he knows. So yes, the actual need to create a filter is very much a need of the moment. And if these purifiers are to be sold right, it's my own experience advice to say that 2 spare filters should be given to every customer with the knowledge that he should replace it after every 6 months. And yeah, it's very encouraging that you have someone out of China whose manufacturing can be obviously much lower than the manufacturing cost over here. And the trick now is to essentially see how you can save on customer duty by saying that these purifiers are for medical purposes. As you know, you save a lot of money doing that. And secondly, it's the registration with the drug regulatory of Pakistan that also would be key in this regard. So those are 2 essential hurdles in your way, but I can see where I'll try to see where I can be of value in that regard. Of course.
Thank you so much, Bilal. Thank you so much. We're already 4 minutes past our scheduled time. So if I would ask the respected Counsel General, Ms. Catherine, shall we take one more question or shall we jump? Because I would request if you could please give some closing remarks and formally end it. So over to you, ma'am. What do you suggest?
I would take one more question and then we can end it.
All right, thank you so much. So if anyone from the participants and the guests we have or anyone, if you have any question or comment, we'd love to take that. And before we ask the madam for the closing remarks.
I would like to ask the U.S. Counsel General if she has any questions regarding our campaign or anything regarding that.
Thank you. I found the slides fascinating. You know, you guys have provided a level of detail that I have not seen, especially I was very disturbed to see the 300,000 deaths of children under the age of 5. All that lost potential for the future of Pakistan is missed every year because of something that is, I believe it was Wasim, is caused by humans. So I think the awareness campaigns that you guys have are very ambitious. And I do agree with Bilal that, you know, most people don't realize that you can't just buy one filter. You've got to change it. It's not going to last forever. And I think that's something people need to understand, that is part of the, you know, it's part of the requirements that you would have. Just like you buy soap and have towels in your house, you need a new filter. I think awareness is fantastic, but I also think that in order to combat this, we need to get to the root cause of the problem. Many of you discussed, you know, transportation, the brick kilns, the quality of oil that is used in vehicles. It is a multi-pronged problem. But I think the first step is what you all are doing, is really raising awareness, because the average person, you know, they think it's smog. Oh, it's just something that happens, you know, 3 months out of the year. As your slides have indicated, and as we already know here at the consulate, air quality is a year-round problem. It's just more evident in the fall because of the smog factor. I know somebody brought up that this is a problem throughout all of Pakistan. I should let you all know we have air quality monitors not only in Lahore, we have one in Peshawar, we have one in Karachi, as well as one in Islamabad. So at least from the Mission Pakistan perspective, you can at least gather information from those monitors, just to give you at least a starting point on what is the air quality. I can tell you, as someone who looks on a daily basis, Lahore typically has everyone beat, unfortunately.
So thank you so much, ma'am. I know we're really honored that you like the slides and everything. So I would also ask you to say some closing remarks, but I think so they were kind of closing. But if you would like to add something more, so we can just call it off. Like,
I'll just add one more thing.
yeah, sure.
Somebody said this early on, that this is a problem that will affect the future of Pakistan. It really is important to get a handle on this in order for Pakistan to have the bright future it deserves. So I think awareness is fantastic, but we also need to combat some of the sources of the air pollution as we move forward. Thank you
Thank you.
again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really an honor to have you and hear your insights and your presence and the support we are getting from the consulate and the PUAN for in the form of ASGs and all that. Thank you so much, Jamal and Shanila, for the support and cooperation. And thank you for the panelists and all the guests who have gathered. We are just, it's a humble attempt of ours to just disseminate the information, as we said, and everyone and respect to CG also said that awareness is the first step where we started. It's a 1,000-mile journey, but we are just trying to take the first steps more effectively. And with all of your support, we can make the future brighter, and we should be able to breathe in freedom. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And we'll just record that and send you the details later on. So have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, everyone, from Farhan and Catherine for being a part of this. It's great.
Pleasure having you, Bilal.
Learning everyone.
Thank you. I'm ending the meeting.